with all the noise surrounding the scandals with Nigel Farage and his announcement that he will be resigning as an MP and will stand in a by election, it's not just him who is embroiled with potential financial corruption. Deputy Reform leader Richard Tice, it has been revealed that he also took money from convicted fraudster George Cottrell. Breaking. The Telegraph reports George Cottrell's mother made a £1 million payment to Richard Tice's company, half of which was donated to Reform, and that George Cottrell loaned £80,000 to Tice. We approached Fiona Cottrell about the above before our piece. She wouldn't comment. Now, the Sunday Times have already reported that Richard Tice's company broke the law by failing to pay at least £90,000 in tax, that a network of his shell companies failed to pay a further £100,000 in tax, benefiting his firm, which donated to Reform, and that he used a loophole to avoid paying £600,000. Dodgy dick. Now, Tice has come out and accused the National Crime Agency of leaking information to the press. Reform accuses National Crime Agency of leaking bank statements. I believe someone at NCA leaked company statements, bank transfer information, and private conversations with my bank managers to The Guardian. I'm seeking inquiry and police must investigate NCA. Now, I feel like Tice has accidentally admitted something here. I mean, why does the NCA have these bank details? I mean, that's kind of a major self-report now. Now, look, you can shoot the messenger, but clearly Tice's activity is noteworthy that it's been recorded in the NCA. But there's more. It can now be revealed that separately, banking staff judged that transfers of funds between Richard Tice, the party's deputy leader and major donor, Fiona Cottrell, and the senior party figure and convicted fraudster George Cottrell required further investigation, according to finance industry sources. Tice, via lawyers, threatened to injunct The Guardian to stop it publishing details. The Guardian understands finance industry figures have raised at least 4 suspicious activity reports related to concerns about transactions involving senior figures in Reform. One relates to a £1 million donation made to Britain Means Business, a fundraising organisation for Reform UK, before the last general election. Half of the £1 million was then transferred by Tice as director of the company to Reform UK. Renamed from Leave Means Leave, Britain Means Business is a company that is used to help fund Reform. The £1 million seemingly came from the aristocrat and Reform UK donor Fiona Cottrell. In this instance, The Guardian understands bank staff were not satisfied that the funds had ultimately come from her. The NCA has sought help from a foreign partner agency to trace the original source of the funds. 2 other SARs relate to a loan from George Cottrell to Tice. The loan was made shortly before Tice finalised a property purchase and made a party donation, and that was not repaid until after those transactions were completed. Now, most of the media attention is on Farage, but it's important to note that this isn't an individual issue. The entire Reform Party has been embroiled with scandals. Having said that, it is more bad news for Farage. After claiming that the £5 million gift from Christopher Harbin was an unconditional reward, there are questions about the origin of that money. The £5 million has been reported to the NCA with concerns that the money could have been laundered. This is serious. This is potentially a criminal activity, not just breaking the parliamentary rules. But The Guardian reports this. The £5 million gift to Nigel Farage by a cryptocurrency billionaire was reported to the National Crime Agency by bankers who were concerned it may have been laundered money. According to financial industry sources, Farage received at least some of the £5 million after he had announced on the 23rd of May 2024 that he was not going to stand for Parliament, saying it was not the right time for me. The balance of the £5 million was received after he had ruled himself out, and shortly before he said he would run for the seat of Clacton in Essex. Harbin's lawyers have claimed Farage received the money on the 5th of April 2024. They did not provide a substantive response to detailed questions on the gift and a suspicious activity reports to the NCA. Instead, they asked for a copy of any documents in the Guardian's possession. In one of the letters sent to the Guardian, Farage said he did not know about the SAR. He added, "I have no reason to doubt the ultimate source of the money." He also repeated unsubstantiated accusations that the information had been illegally obtained by this newspaper. Helena, do you think we could see the destruction of the Reform Party? It's not just Nigel Farage implicated, but potentially Richard Tice too.
I mean, a lot of these people, I think, had the level to which they didn't realise that there would be this much scrutiny, you know? Because none of these people have ever actually been politicians before. Yeah, I know Nigel Farage has been in the European Parliament, sure, I guess, but is that a real elected role? Sorry, Ellie. But, like, when it comes to the actual scrutiny of being a politician in this country, I don't think any of them realise the level of actual reporting there would be on the things that they were doing, you know? Again, it seems all above board in terms of, like, the ways in which that they must have seen it. But in loads of different ways, they are doing things that have precedent that they should be following, and they didn't realise necessarily, potentially, that they could have even had to follow in a lot of cases. Remember, so when it comes to cryptocurrency donations, so I was talking with Lewis from Turn Left, who you should go and follow on TikTok, on Saturday about this stuff, right? And there's the difference between, like, permissible and impermissible donors, right? And they've had to learn pretty quickly that you need to be able to have, like, permissible donors, like, transferring cryptocurrency into the right wallet to be able to donate, which means that the actual source of that transaction could be from anywhere, right? So as far as they're concerned, I think, well, it's coming from this particular industry, this particular person at this particular time, so that's all above board. But it's far more complex than just the last person who ever sent them money. And again, on top of all of this, when it comes to the kind of people who they are fraternizing with, these are probably people who've come from very privileged backgrounds. In lots of cases, we know the privileged backgrounds these people have come from. They're from the aristocracy, they've gone to private schools, they've gone to the upper echelons of society with the filthiest of the richest people in this country. Obviously, they're in the social circles of billionaires and social circles of people who broadly very rarely get touched by power. They broadly have power, let them alone, because that is how capitalism will work, right? That's always been the way of capitalism. But once you get involved in politics, that scrutiny kicks up a notch. They're not used to having this level of scrutiny, this level to which they have to have everything above board. And the fact that things have been reported to the National Crime Agency is a real Rubicon that's been crossed here, rather than just whether did they follow parliamentary rules or not. Because at the end of the day, I think that when it comes, for example, to the by-election that's coming up quite soon, Nigel Farage saying, well, people out there don't really care about the parliamentary rules, they care about the policies. And I think that probably is true for a lot of people out there, right? Like, I don't think that he's necessarily wrong to say that people are more concerned with, is the country actually getting better, rather than are all of the people following the rules to the letter of the law, to the letter of the kind of parliamentary standards. But when it comes to the actual law, that's totally different. If these things are being scrutinized for potential legal complication, that changes the game. That changes the whole game here. Because the right wing, they've always prided themselves on being the supporters of law and order. You know, they've always prided themselves as being the party that want to follow the law to its letter, regardless of whether they believe in the actual utility of the laws that have been passed. Whether they agree with them or not, they believe in the concept of everyone following the law. But what's weird is how when it comes to white-collar law, the lines go a bit blurry, don't they? They like to point at all of the crime that's happening, that's very visible, violent crime, whatever it is. But as soon as it comes to scrutiny of financial transactions, when it looks at, like, money laundering, for example, given that one of the actual sources potentially of a donor is somebody who's been convicted of money laundering, then it's going too far. This is too much scrutiny. This is the establishment trying to come down. No, this is a real legal problem that you've got going here. And I think that the public more broadly won't take it as lightly as, did you correctly follow the rules or not with regards to reporting donations as per, like, being elected member of parliament. Because legal complications, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
I think you're probably right to say that most people might not care about parliamentary rules. A lot of people won't know how it works, what the rules are. So, like, I can understand from Reform's and Nigel Farage's perspective to say, look, no one cares about this sort of stuff. What I do think, though, is the ongoing stories that keeps dragging on, and more scandals. People are going to get the idea that this guy's a dodgy bloke. But you do tend to hear from people, I know Farage is probably corrupt, but they're all corrupt. And that's quite depressing because, I mean, sure, a lot of our MPs are corrupt, but one, it doesn't mean that Nigel Farage gets off the hook. But two, he is that much more corrupt as well. So I do think, like, people do care more about material conditions.
Oh, it's a different level of corruption here, isn't it? Like
There is, yeah.
getting glasses being given to you that you have reported, right? Like people were
Mm.
attacking Keir Starmer correctly because of the perceived conflict of interest of his relationships with rich people that were giving him free stuff as like you don't get something for nothing. And then Nigel Farage, the person who's making those pointed and real criticisms of Keir Starmer, can't come out here and say, well, this £5 million unconditional gift was in no way due to any services that were rendered, right? There's no way you can say that there wasn't potential conflict of interest here, given that he made the same critique of Keir Starmer for something of a considerably lower value, right? Like these things don't really wash. What you've also have noticed, right? A lot of the newspapers that come out with this stuff, save for, of course, The Guardian, which is very left-wing, or very left-wing in comparison to the rest of the media outlet in this country, rather, is what I should say, is that the papers that have come up with this latest stuff, they're right-wing papers. It's the Times that have come out with some of these things. They are owned by the Murdoch family. That's a right-wing kind of organisation. Even the Telegraph have come out against Nigel Farage and some of these receipts that have been provided in terms of the reporting over the last few days, which shows that maybe the right-wing media, they're ready to get behind Kemi Badenoch. Maybe they've realised that the goose is cooked on reform if these things have started coming out now, and they're willing to pile it on to try and stop a vote split on the right to be able to support the Tories over the Labour Party. Because at the end of the day, if you're somebody who works in capital, which is who the people who own all of these newspapers are, right? The one thing that you really care about is just having a quiet country with low taxation and low regulation for you to do business. An authoritarian alt-right party getting into office actually is bad for business. Look at Donald Trump in the United States right now. Is America a good place to do business? Not really. If your workforce are going to get deported and sent to a concentration camp in El Salvador, right? Like you can't really do menial labor for below minimum wage if you're in an El Salvadorian gulag, can you? And I'm assuming these people are like, well, do we really want to risk it with Nigel Farage destabilising the country? Would we rather have boring neoliberal capitalism from Kemi Badenoch, and also to ensure that she does get into office rather than having the right-wing vote split with Nigel Farage potentially allowing Labour to remain in office?
Do you think, though, that like the Times is 200 years old, the Telegraph is a very old paper? Do you think there is an element of they're so institutionalized that like they don't like the Nigel Farages? Like they would back him if need be, if there was a threat of a left wing figure. But do you think there is a sense of properness, old school conservatism that they would happily obviously support the Conservatives, but Nigel Farage is something different? Do you think it's that, or do you genuinely think, do you know what, it's because they think Farage is a dead horse, they better back Kemi? Because whilst it's the Murdoch press, there is some good investigative journalism at the Times.
I mean, when it comes specifically to Pogrund and Maguire, like I do think these people do genuinely care about the work that they do, although, you know, the work that they do in a lot of cases is stuff that other people have done, that they have the lawyers that they can afford to protect, right? Like, I'm not going to say much more than that before people get angry with me, but do they actually care about adhering to the rules? For sure. But when it comes to like the Times as an organisation, I'm less confident that it's about adherence to process rather than it is about wanting to be able to do the right things for the Murdoch media. Because would I say this of the Times pre-Murdoch acquisition, that they were there because they were an asset for the British state, I mean, for the British kind of tradition, I guess? Sure. Post Murdoch, no, I don't think so.